Look, I'm late to this whole Piñata Puppy World thing. My last video on it was, what was it? It was about 2 months ago, as of recording this, at least almost about 2 months ago. And a lot has happened since then, as there's been some pretty big updates, especially around the funding side of things, which I'll be getting into here in just a bit. But yeah, a couple things have gone down of Piñata Puppy World, and I figured it was time for a follow-up video to talk about what happened. So let's just jump right into it. Now, if you don't know what Piñata Puppy World is, I've got a link up above to my previous video where I go over the whole thing, so it'll help get you caught up so that this video makes a lot more sense in the case that, again, you don't really know anything about Piñata Puppy World. But since that last video I made, quite a bit has happened. The biggest thing mainly being that the game actually got fully funded. Yeah, they pulled in about, I would have to say, around 42k, 6 to 7k over their initial funding goal, which was 35k. So they didn't really hit any of the stretch goals, but they did raise enough to fully fund the game, so there's that. And I know that final number may not be a lot to some people, especially when you compare it to what games like Indigo Park managed to raise, which is still insane to begin with, let's be honest. But even then, them raising this amount of money for their game is still pretty impressive, to be honest, especially when you consider the fact that especially when you consider the fact that the Piñata Puppy World team managed to raise that kind of money without a demo. Seriously, there's no playable demo to give people a feel for the gameplay or what the game's even really about. All we've seen so far are gameplay trailers and devlog videos. That's really about it, at least to my knowledge. And they're aiming to price this whole thing right around 15 bucks when it drops too. So yeah, this game better be worth the 15 bucks. But enough about me rambling here. I actually do want to do something a little different in this video, and it's something I don't think I've ever really done on this channel before, though I sometimes say that a lot about a lot of things I do on this channel, to be honest. But basically I'm going to be reacting, if you could even call it that, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be reacting to another video in real time. Specifically, we're checking out this video by Realtime Studios called The Truth About Piñata Puppy World, which seems to be diving into a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff about the game's development and everything going on with the project in of itself, so let's give it a watch.
Hey, my name is Taryn, and I'm the creator of our VHS-styled camcorder game. It's all about exploring your past memories via the Children's Museum of Piñata Puppy World. For those who are new here and just finding out about this game, let me give you a little bit of the basics. Piñata Puppy World is a nostalgia-driven explorative campaign game inspired by the 2000s. Our game features an emotional and surreal storyline where players get to explore their past through the lens of a grainy VHS camera, all while under the veil/disguise of mascot horror.
Alright, so first things first, if you watched my latest video, or no, my last video on this thing, then you'll know that I referred to it, at least in the title, as a liminal space mascot horror game. And I said that because when you first see the characters, your brain kind of immediately goes, oh, this is a mascot horror game, right? You probably will assume that because for one thing, you see the animatronic dog, and then two, you see the animatronic dog chasing you through some sort of place, I don't know what this is, and that's the impression you get. And to be fair, most games that have some sort of mascot or franchise character tied to horror usually get lumped into that mascot horror category pretty quickly. But apparently, Piñata Puppy World is meant to come across that way, like it's designed to seem like a mascot horror game on the surface, but it's actually not supposed to be like that, or at least that's what they're saying, even though the characters are animatronics, which, you know, I don't know about you, but if you've got animatronic characters chasing you around in some sort of horror setting, you're kind of already halfway to the mascot horror label, I'm gonna be real.
However, I think the gameplay is far from the modern mascot horror title, which I think can get a little oversaturated. With this game, we want to tell a more different tone, something that's more engaging and nuanced.
I don't really know what this game could be doing that sets it completely apart from the other mascot horror titles, because at this point, I feel like every single mascot horror game that has ever come into existence has tried to at least touch on different themes and aesthetics. Some have done it more efficiently than others have, but it's hard to say you're doing something totally different in a genre that's already so saturated. Trying to stand out in this space is probably going to be really tough for a game like this.
As for the game at its core, we want to tell a story about the relationship between mental health and nostalgic depression. This game expands beyond your formulaic "thing from the past wants to kill you" like trope, and our story addresses something so much more thoughtful and deep that I think not a lot of other projects even get into.
I do think there are valid reasons as to why a lot of projects do tend to steer clear of mental health topics like depression or anxiety, because those things you really have to handle with care, right? You have to know what you're talking about. You can't just be throwing that stuff into a story without giving it the proper weight or whatever. These are super sensitive, personal subjects, and everyone experiences them differently. So if you're gonna include them, you have to be intentional. You need to have a clear idea of how you're going to present those themes as something meaningful. And if the core of your game is based around those experiences like nostalgic depression or mental illness in of itself, you've got to do that justice, right? You need a story that connects with people and not one that just trivializes or mishandles or just uses it for aesthetic reasons.
Gameplay-wise, our game focuses on doing gameplay ideas without immersion-breaking UI, or a game HUD, text that shows up on the screen.
Okay, so this is my personal opinion about this whole thing. I don't really love this whole no HUD or UI thing. I get the appeal in trying to make it all about the immersion and everything, but honestly, sometimes I just want maybe something on the screen, like a little guidance or whatever. I don't need my hand held throughout the entire game or whatnot, but just, give me something. Give me a little prompt, a little indicator, a waypoint, anything that can maybe at least give me some sort of direction, especially in those games that involve big, confusing environments or mazes or like multi-level structures. Having no UI just makes things a lot harder for people who probably aren't naturally good at that kind of navigation, and I'd rather have the option of being pointed in the right direction, or at least having something on my screen, rather than, I don't know, spending 30 minutes or so just aimlessly wandering around.
Our vision is really to make you feel like you're inside the camera itself. Like when you're looking around, it actually feels like you're in the camera re-looking at a real memory.
I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Every other liminal space or backrooms type game or horror game or whatever is out there at this point has already done this before. The whole you're in the camera immersive vibe, or whatever you want to call it, where there's no HUD and the idea is that you are the one exploring around, has been done before. A lot. It's practically a genre trope at this point. So it's not something that's like an entirely new concept that hasn't been done before, because I can probably guarantee you there likely is a mascot horror game out there, or at least some sort of liminal space game that has this in it.
So with that being said, let's talk about the main gameplay mechanics. Camera/flashlight. In the Children's Center of Piñata Puppy World, there might be areas where you'll need to turn on and off your camera's flashlight, either to illuminate something in the darkness that you can't see.
Not gonna lie, I love how he's explaining how a flashlight works in the game. Buddy, I don't mean to be rude here, but you don't gotta teach us how to use a flashlight. You don't have to explain in detail how we can maneuver a flashlight. I'm pretty sure everybody here knows and has played some sort of game where you've used a flashlight before. It's okay, I know how a flashlight works.
Another mechanic with the camera is that with the camcorder, you're able to zoom in and out, meaning inspecting things real close to make sure that there's things in the environment that you haven't missed, or if there's anything that would be possibly in the distance.
Okay, so the same thing with the camera mechanic here. He's just going over it like it's some new groundbreaking feature. But let's be honest, every other backrooms or liminal space horror game, yes, I keep bringing this up, I'm sorry, has had a camera mechanic at some point similar to this. People know how to use cameras in games by now. It's not new. Anyone who's played a liminal space game or backrooms game has had a camera with them alongside a flashlight and has used those silly things before. I just don't see the need about why you need to explain this to us again.
And as well as zooming, we'll be able to use the camera to capture memories and moments that you want to revisit back to. Essentially, your camera almost works as a save button. Each photo you take is represented in an image as a new memory, which once a photo is taken, you can then view and revisit in the main menu to come back to your save file where you saved.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I mean, it's a cool mechanic, but this whole thing is a save system. It's a save menu too. That's it.
The memory board is something uniquely special. Because you're locked off on a camera, the only way you can go back to a main menu is to pause your gameplay and to go back home. AKA pause reliving your memory and then go back to the main menu.
Dude, I'm really tempted to just skip ahead at this point because it's getting ridiculous that you're explaining the main menu to us. You've explained how flashlights work. You've explained saving. I'm pretty confident that people know those basic universal mechanics. And I get the save feature is probably a little more unique, but the other mechanics like the flashlight, the camera, these are universal mechanics, dude. It's like you're talking to us about them as if they've never existed before.
Inside the main menu, hung up on your bedroom wall, is the map. You play the game through a story mode first. This is where you explore through the environment and go through our campaign, where you get the storytelling, a little bit of the lore, the sort of reason why you come here, and the sort of storytelling in that way. However, after the sort of story mode, you can then revisit the entire world. After you take a photo with the camera and it shows up on the memory board, it not only saves your location, but then it also unlocks that location and any other photos you took to be revisited after the main story playthrough. The further you explore after the main playthrough, the more you'll start to realize that you're finding other places you might have missed on your first time around.
Okay, so I'm a little confused on this part. From what I understand, in your first playthrough, you do not have a map. You have to explore the game blind during your first playthrough and take photos to kind of build out this map. At least I'm getting the picture, okay? But then, wait, you can fast travel only after the first playthrough. Wait, okay, hold on, wait. I might just be stupid. I don't know, guys. Like, honestly, I'm probably just stupid.
One thing that we've been told is we said, you haven't been telling enough. And so now we're going to tell you everything. And I want to keep you guys all informed about how much the progress is going with the game and how the Kickstarter is going. And what are the next steps now that we are completely funded?
Anyways, we're now going to be moving on to the Q&A portion of the video, so let's see what that has in store for us now.
Is the game 45 minutes? No, the game is not 45 minutes. Since we're not looking to do some sort of like chapter-based like gameplay thingy, the whole game's supposed to be one cool game. One big fun game. And so what we have planned is we have a story mode, which is about 1 to 2 hours of like a whole complete, almost like a filmatic feeling, cinematic. And then there is the sort of open world style where you can unlock and explore everything of the building, and you can use the memory board and the map and everything like that.
Honestly, I do kind of respect that. A lot of indie horror games lately have been more so mascot horror games, but it's been happening a lot with these indie horror games where they're splitting off their games more into chapters, and while I can understand why, where they want to release content steadily and improve the quality of the game over time if it's supported a lot, it's getting to a point where it's becoming really, really repetitive and annoying almost. Like, some games I feel don't need to be split into parts. And sure, there are benefits to chapter releases, like the quality of the game improving with better graphics, better storytelling, better mechanics, so on and so forth as they progress and go along. I totally get that, but on the other hand, it's refreshing to see a game that's aiming to release as one complete package, so I'm kind of looking forward to see how that turns out, especially if it's only about 1 to 2 hours long.
If we'd want to build like the coolest house in the world, we could always add another brick. But not right now, because we're trying to do the one brick. If you'd ever want a sequel, not like a chapter 2, but a sequel, then, just show up to my house and shoot RPG at my...
Okay, I'm not going to get too deep into the sequel talk here, because let's be real, the game's not even out yet. We don't know how it plays, how people are going to respond to it, or even if it's going to be well received. So making plans for a sequel already on something like this is kind of premature. And I'm not saying they are, because it's an idea at this point, right? They're not actively working on a sequel while also working on the game. Like, I get it, maybe the devs are excited and already have ideas for more, but you've got to wait and see how the game performs itself. Sometimes you have this thing where devs tend to rush and make sequels, and hey, if Piñata Puppy World ends up being a great game and earns a sequel, cool, but for now, I would just focus on the first game and not anything else after that.
Why is the game $15? Other games range from the sort of $8 to $15 price range, which I think is kind of the sweet spot that we want. But I also understand that $15 is just slightly over what's kind of more reasonable for what you'd expect from like a mascot horror game. But also remember, this isn't a chapter-based game. It's not like you're going to get like 1 hour of a story and then you're going to be like, all right, that's it. There's more. There's so much more to it. I don't mean to alarm you, but I'm not a corporate company.
About the price point, yeah, I can see that, I get it too, but you raised, what, about $42K through Kickstarter? And that's not nothing, And I know you said that the money is going straight into development and everybody contributing to this project here, which is great. But from a consumer perspective, if you're already being funded by backers and then you're following it up by charging $15 on top of that, some people are probably going to have some questions about it. Not saying you can charge money or anything, it's your game, do whatever you want, but pricing does influence expectations, and if people feel like they paid $15 for something that underdelivers or doesn't live up to its expectations, yeah, that kind of frustration can really end up turning into backlash.
All footage shown is gameplay. I've seen some people say that specifically the chase shot, and by association every other shot, is all animated footage in Blender. I don't know how to, we won. That's awesome. There was a clip on our Meet the Crew video that showed a Blender mock-up so that we can get the timeline and the length of the clip right for the trailer. But people misinterpreted that as if that was the shaky camera. But if you compare them, they look completely different.
Wait, hold on. That's the gameplay? The super saturated shot you're showing in the trailer? That's what the actual game looks like? My eyeballs just hurt from looking at this, and they hurt throughout the entirety of the trailer. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm really hoping that's a placeholder or something, because if the whole game is gonna look like this, then that's rough, dude. That's really rough for people who have sensitive eyes. I don't mean to sound harsh here, but visually, it's just so much. It's just too much. And again, people don't react well to bright, saturated images. Maybe it's something that'll get cleaned up on later in the future, but geez, dude.
Now we're gonna get to the part that I didn't even think I'd have to address. This game is being called a scam. Unfortunately, a lot of Kickstarters face the same ridicule. Expectantly so, because people are putting a lot of money into this, like a huge amount. $35,000, which is nutty. And with that money, we have artists to pay. What you probably don't know is we've been doing Piñata Puppy World for the past 9 months, which is going to develop the maps, the artwork, the gameplay, the story, the visuals, the 2D animation, the music around the universe, and the detail that goes in-universe for world building, like the websites, and the character designs, and everything to truly make it authentic to the 2000s. Every effort you've put in so far has led up to being able to make this game as beautiful and as amazing an experience as it can possibly be. No matter what, we won't stop showing progress and the exciting things that we're working on. However, we're not gonna be like modern movie trailers where we basically show you absolutely everything and then the only new thing is like a little cameo with a moldy cheeseburger or some YouTuber that just shows up.
Okay, so for this whole scam talk here, I actually do kind of agree with Taran here. Let's chill with that for a second. The game isn't even out yet, and you can't really call something an entire scam just because you're skeptical or unsure about it, because people did choose to back the project on Kickstarter, and they did that knowing the risks that might be involved with doing something like that. That's how crowdfunding works. If the final product comes out and it doesn't match what was promised, then okay, maybe it'll fall under the scam category, who knows. But a game simply being bad or underwhelming isn't a scam. A scam is when you lie about what you're making and take the money and run. If the game comes out and everything they promised is in there, even if it does flop, that's not a scam, that's a miss. I think that's the right term. Also, I get that the devs don't want to give too much away, but man, I would just love to see a bit more here, besides just giving whatever you're showing them now. Only time will tell what this game is actually going to deliver. Will it live up to what was promised? Who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us and turn out to be a really solid, enjoyable game, or maybe it'll flop. I don't know. And hey, you know what? I'll give props where props are due. You know, shout out to the Piñata Puppy World team for getting funded. That's not a small feat, especially for Kickstarter games, especially for ones that don't even have demos of their games even released yet. You managed to put together enough money needed to make the project happen. And even if they didn't hit any of their stretch goals, they definitely did raise enough to get the core game off the ground. So hopefully that funding is being put to good use and that the game does reflect that effort and those resources that were put into it. And another thing too I want to mention that is pretty important, and I do this a lot for my videos, don't harass anybody a part of the Piñata Puppy World team. Not at all. Like, they're just making a game. I'm not trying to discredit anybody on the team here who is working on Piñata Puppy World. This is their second game after all, I think, and their track record at the moment isn't exactly the best with some people. that's about it for this video. I don't really have much else to add right now. I think I'm gonna hold off on talking more about Piñata Puppy World until either the full game drops or unless something happens in the meantime that actually changes the conversation around it. But overall, thank you guys for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. It's been a crazy time for my channel lately because there's so many people that just suddenly flooded and subscribed to my channel. Like, you guys are insane, and the support is just, it's super nice. Thank you so much for all your support. It truly does mean a lot to me, and I hope I can continue making content that you will come to enjoy. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and I will see you next time. All right, bye bye.